What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today we're going to be talking some more about Destiny 2, and this time discussing some more things that came out during E3 from Bungie. So a lot of really cool bits of info and random interviews that went by quite unnoticed in all the E3 hype. So like fast traveling and silent events, a very vague answer on vault space, and this really cool Psion boss battle in a forest. So I've collected a lot of bits of info, and as usual we'll be rounding them up in this video. So this all comes from Luke Smith. I'm sure you guys know by now. He's the lead director of Destiny 2. So the first thing he discussed was about weapon types. So as it turns out, there's actually a separate pool of kinetic and also energy weapons. So for example, you're not going to have this one hand cannon which can either drop as a primary weapon with kinetic damage or a secondary version with elemental damage. They're two completely separate pools of weapons, so they're either in one category or the other, but not both. There's no kind of crossing between the two. So there's a specific bunch of primary hand cannons, for example, that all shoot kinetic damage in the primary slot. And there's also another separate pool of elemental hand cannons in the energy slot, and they all do, of course, elemental damage. So they're each designed for their own purpose, which is definitely a good thing. And it means you won't have the same gun just with a burn and without a burn. So it adds a lot more variety, and definitely a good thing in terms of the guns we'll be using. So next up, there are going to be a couple of fast travel points for the first time in Destiny 2, so you can fast travel across certain locations in Destiny 2. Not exactly sure if it's all the planets or just some of them, like the big ones, like European Dead Zone, for example. But we did hear earlier that there are multiple landing zones for the European Dead Zone, but like I said, it is also the biggest location in Destiny 2, which is apparently double the size of the biggest location in Destiny 1. Now, I'm still not even sure what that technically is, because I know it used to be Mars, but the new Cosmodrome and Plaguelands is technically bigger, but I'm not sure if that counts. It's kind of two areas, but either way, European Dead Zone is really big, and to account for that, there are going to be fast travel spots as well as separate landing zones. You can choose where exactly inside the EDZ you can actually land down on, which is pretty cool and definitely makes a lot of sense. So they also confirmed that guided games, which of course is the sort of matchmaking for clans that you can go and do raids, that's only going to work for the normal version of the raid. So heroic or hard mode, there's going to be no matchmaking with guided games, of course none in general, but I don't really see it as that big a deal, because once you find a clan, you can basically just hop in the voice chat and say, hey, do you want to do the heroic instead? I'm sure people will probably put in their clan bio that they're doing the hard mode instead of the normal, so I'm sure people find a way around it, but that is a fact. The hard mode is not going to be able to matchmake with guided games. So Luke also very quickly and vaguely mentioned something called the Silent Event class, which he described it as pretty similar to the enemies moving against each other in Destiny 1. You probably remember sometimes in Patrol, instead of a public event, there is a chance where two enemy races could move against each other, and they basically go to war for a few minutes, and they end up with ridiculously powerful enemies coming out, sometimes of more health and shields than the enemies inside raids. So it can be pretty fun, and also decent for farming as well. But now we know that's going to be returning in Destiny 2, but evolved in some way, and they refer to it as the Silent class of events, which is probably their internal name. And then he went on to talk about flashpoints, which I already talked about in a separate video, which will be linked down below in the description. But that's an event where a bunch of enemies in a random location each week are going to pop up and drop a Nightfall level reward. So next up, the Exo Stranger. Now this is a pretty big topic that had a lot of discussion around E3. I didn't actually get a chance to cover it or mention it in a video, but it's a pretty weird one coming from, again, this PC Gamer article when talking to Luke Smith. But he said something that definitely threw a lot of the Destiny community off, which was that the Exo Stranger story was actually done and wrapped off, suggesting we won't ever hear from the Exo Stranger again, and they find it odd that so many people expect more from that storyline, which they thought they did a pretty good job of wrapping up and actually closing out, which I personally have to disagree with. I think the reason why so many people expected to see more from the Exo Stranger was because she was so unbelievably vague, and she teased this massive story. I think most of us were hoping to find out something later in the DLCs, or maybe in the big expansion like Taken King, but we never heard anything, and the assumption was that in a future game we would find out, but apparently that is not the case. At the end of Destiny 1, the campaign, she literally says that our fight is far from over, and then she fades out and disappears, so it's completely understandable why most people would assume she would have a big part in the future of Destiny's story, even though she isn't really tied to many stories. But her story itself is so open-ended and vague that I feel like Bungie might just write her into Destiny 3 or 4 and have some relevance in a war somewhere down the line. But either way, she is not going to be appearing in Destiny 2, and as of right now, she has no relevance, which I really don't mind, because I thought she was a pretty bland and boring character. I was expecting that to be fleshed out in future stories, but it seems Bungie has no intention of doing that right now for Destiny 2. So maybe they'll see all of the people expecting more, and maybe they'll figure out a way to write her into the future. But as of now, in Destiny 2, the Stranger is not going to be appearing. So they also asked a pretty cool question, which was, by dropping the PS3 and Xbox 360, how is Destiny 2 going to benefit from that? And they said, it lets us make larger worlds, larger play spaces, more AI, and we have more activities running. So being able to pull up the map and go straight to another planet without going to orbit first, that is an example of something we can do on these consoles that wouldn't have been possible on the PS3 and 360. I can definitely understand that because patrols do seem very dense. I mean, right now in Destiny 2, these are the things we know of. You've got patrol missions, public events, adventures, lost sectors, treasure maps, silent events, and flashpoints. So add that all into like seamless integration, the way players pop in and out. I can imagine that would be very, very intensive, and especially on a location as big as the European Dead Zone, you can definitely see how this would not be possible on old-gen consoles. So the next question was very quick and very random, but they asked, will ships serve any purpose beyond a cool loading screen? And Luke said, no, they will not. They are a cool loading screen trinket. So pretty sad answer. No space combat or like gameplay inside the ships as of now. Maybe in a future game, but in Destiny 2, they're literally just a cool loading screen trinket. Now, they also talked about one of the most undersold things, according to Luke Smith, in Destiny 2, which is the adventures, and they described one of them for the first time, but he described a pretty cool scenario. So one of these adventures, in Patrol of course, is where you'll find a bunch of Psions casting a shield over a boss, so you kill them to make the boss's shield go down and then take out the boss, and then you continue chasing them through this dark forest, where a similar scenario starts taking place and more Psions are shielding this ultra boss with a giant gun, and there are more waves of ads in a big open forest area. And the mechanics repeat because you learn to take them down and then take down the boss after it. So similar to Rise of Iron, how it introduces mechanics and you know what to do, like throwing Seaver charges, and it teaches you through the mechanics to take down the Psions and then the boss. And also with adventures, they weren't initially designed to be replayable. They were supposed to be one-time missions, just like the quests in Destiny 1, where you just kind of go through them, you never get to play them again. They're not like options in the main Destiny director screen. But they said they recently greenlit a replayability feature for adventure content, so it won't be random access like Destiny 1, where you can just replay it when you want, but there will be a way for you to chew through replaying adventures if that's how you want to spend your time. So it sounds to me a bit like a playlist. I don't think, like I said, it's going to be straight director where you can do these adventures on the map, but it sounds like it's going to be some kind of playlist or feature activity where you can do the adventures. And now, one of the final questions at the end of this interview, they asked about vault space in the new social space farm area, but they didn't get much of an answer, unfortunately. So they asked, now the vault's gone, where are we going to be storing all of our stuff? And then Luke said, there is a vault on the farm, there's still going to be a vault there. And then they asked, is the farm vault going to be bigger? And then Luke said, I exited my last meeting, which was about some cool systems work, and the vaults are always an interesting topic of conversation and discussion for the systems team. We're continuing to look at it, but nothing to share today. So unfortunately, not much of an answer, but they're still working on things and figuring stuff out, I guess. So that has been a roundup of a bunch of things Luke Smith has said in various interviews. As always, if you enjoyed the video, a like rating would be much appreciated. Subscribe for more Destiny 2 videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.